I will call him and tell him he's got to go home. I'm very sorry.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. The journey, our adventure, starts here. What to tell you, really? I think we should play something and see how it sounds.
The Duchess of Malfi, one of England's oldest plays, is being reinvented as one of its newest operas.
Opera audiences are actually getting older, and we have to replace audiences. We have to encourage new audiences to try the art form, to build a relationship with it. It's about trying out things, and it's about being consistent with a vision. And sometimes you have to break through even the environment you're working in to get to a new audience. Can opera transfer away from a proscenium arch theatre? Who knows? Because the whole point about doing interesting modern work is that it may look good on paper, but if you don't bring the audience with you, it's worth nothing in the end.
Joining E&O in this risky venture to draw fresh crowds is radical theatre company Punchdrunk. Known as a leading light in the recent site-specific theatre trend, they stage productions in buildings never intended as theatres. The audience wander freely and are encouraged to immerse themselves, often wearing masks to break down inhibitions.
I want it to have a more potent impact than an opera you might happen to catch at the Colosseum, but that's more because the audience are going to be in the middle of the orchestra. We want to empower the audience to choose their evening, so we're not forcing anything upon them. Whatever they're in the mood for that night, they need to be able to dictate how they structure their show. Our previous productions kind of are operatic in their scale and their intention, so it felt that we were crying out to do it properly.
As far as experimenting goes, then yes, I think Punchdrunk was an obvious choice to push the boat out, if you like, but a risky one as well. And let's face it, theatre should be about risk, and opera theatre should also be about risk. But, you know, there are risks and risks.
The one thing that perhaps isn't a gamble is the story. The Duchess of Malfi, John Webster's notorious Jacobean play, is the bloodthirsty text the company have chosen to base their brand new opera on.
It's perfect Punchdrunk material because of its inherent darkness. It's a whole world that's sort of tainted. It's a space where, you know, the walls themselves are bleeding. It's such a bold visual story that it felt that it would transcribe perfectly to opera.
It was quite a quick decision. It was, we could actually turn this into an opera, but not an opera in the sense of the Colosseum or the Royal Opera House. An immersive opera. Take that story and see what happens when you give it to a composer.
German composer Torsten Rasch, the man chosen to write the Duchess of Malfi opera.
We listened to so many different composers, and it was still nothing connected. And it wasn't until put on the CD, I was quite exasperated and thinking, maybe this is just an impossible way to work. Maybe we need to go back to the drawing board and find an existing opera and rework it. And listening to the first 30 seconds of Mein Herz brennt, just put it on, suddenly, just that initial chord, that sound, that swell. And then within 30 seconds, I was on the phone saying, "We've got it!"
Rasch's darkly moving song cycle appealed to Punchdrunk's taste for epic soundscapes and raw emotion.
Felix has listened to this CD of mine, and I guess it's his idea to make opera and make an opera in his Punchdrunk style and make an accessible piece of art that people feel somehow attracted or very attached to it. The only thing which makes music accessible to me is emotion, because it's the first level you encounter music on, be it in an opera or be it in a concert.
I'd never heard a note of Torsten's music at this stage, so I went online, Google, great gift of Google, Torsten Rasch, who the hell's that? I'm going to pretend I know who he is, because I really didn't know anything about him. And I found some music that I could listen to, and I suddenly got the point. It's sort of, it's epic in its scope. I've been working for, for 6 years as a pianist and as a coach and as an assistant conductor, but this is the first one that I've done from scratch. I was a bit nervous, if I'm really honest. Great, great, great. As much am Frosch is with the heel, isn't it? Some of it's in German, so it's as sort of nasty as you can here.
Stevie's incredibly calm. You know, he's come to this project with complete open eyes. And I think, this is what is important about doing new work and being confident about it and taking risks and seeking out new audiences for opera. You have to be broad-minded.
We have a lot of challenges. I mean, people feel safe in what they know. This is the fundamental thing. Everybody, I think, feels safe in what they know. And what we know is the curtain goes up, we're in the pit, I'm standing, I can see all the singers, they can see me. Everything is there, do you know what I mean? Suddenly, we leave the theatre, we've got no monitors, we've got no proscenium, we've got no curtains, we've got no anything. And it's just a completely rethinking what we do as musicians.
Four of the opera's 5 singers are starting work, but one cast member won't be able to join them until the final week.
I'm Freddie, and I'll be singing the role of the Cardinal.
And I'm Julia, and I'm singing the role of Julia. So it's very easy to
I'm Richard, and I'm not singing Richard, I'm singing Daniel de Bossola.
And I'm Claudia, and I'll be singing the Duchess.
Dude.
It's a huge challenge for me. I've never done any modern music, sung any modern music at all, so it's completely new for me. It's just difficult to find where you are and difficult to find your notes. You have to sort of sometimes find your notes from a few bars earlier, what you're going to sing a few bars later, and you're counting a lot of the time. It's a bit like a mathematics exercise sometimes.
It's been stressful because the music was composed so late. So usually we have months and months before we start rehearsals to learn it by ourselves. So usually we come to rehearsal period not having to look at the music even. But now this has to be integrated. The learning of the music has to be integrated with the staging of it. So it's going to be a bit more tricky.
Sort of makes it real. We were actually doing it. In 6 weeks' time, the public are coming in. So we've started that journey that's begun. And that's good.
So we'd actually commissioned a piece with no venue. So that would have been very embarrassing. Punchdrunk were very specific about the scale of venue they wanted, and I went to see a few venues with them that they didn't want, and I would ask the question, why isn't this right for you?
It was getting harder and harder to really find somewhere that was of the right scale. A lot of the buildings that we were looking at were really interesting spaces, but then you start to think about putting an orchestra, even when it's, you know, being deconstructed into different sections, you know, even just trying to find enough space for 25 musicians, and then contemplating the idea that there's maybe 100 people going to watch a scene. So when I walked into this place, it was like, wow, this works. Aesthetically, it didn't at all. It was totally empty. It's very modern, but the office building was amazing. And then when the security guard took me into the warehouse space, I was like, I couldn't believe it. We found the space.
I would have your bodies burnt in a coal pit with the ventage stopped.
You couldn't have found that space anywhere in central London. That sort of space doesn't exist. It's as big as a football pitch. So I could see in the end what they were looking for.
The choreography I really share with the dancers. I facilitate and I lead that, and some moments and events I craft very particularly, but lots of the actual movement language is created by the dancers in response to tasks that I set them. And because there's so much choreography within the work, there's a lot of language, dance language to invent in order to sort of tell the story.
You can use the shape, the flesh coming off.
The Malfi project is different because in previous work that's been performance-driven, the thrust of the narrative has been told by the dancers and has been told through the choreography, essentially. And with this work, the thrust of the narrative is told through the singing and through the music and through the, through the libretto.